Welcome to the Weather Show with Vin Crosby. I am meteorologist Vin Crosby. This is the 2021 Winter Weather Outlook. This is a fourth annual Winter Weather Outlook. It's been very popular. I've heard from you via email, of course, seeing me in public, somebody coming up often saying, when are you going to release your Winter Weather Outlook? Well, here it is. So tell your friends and share it with everybody out there. We are going to give you snow totals for the mountains for the next 4 months and some areas in the Treasure Valley, some specific snow total forecasts of what I think is going to happen this season. We started this around 4 years ago during that thing called Snowmagedon. That term started because of this show, because of the forecast that we were ridiculed for 2 months in advance. We forecast Snowmageddon, the only forecast that was out there 2 months in advance for that big snowstorm. I can guarantee that we won't see anything like that. That was a catastrophe. It got pretty serious, didn't it? Roofs collapsing, millions of dollars of damages to businesses, and it was just horrific. And I can guarantee that we will not see another one of those storms in the next 50 years at least. I'm 51. I think that storm was a once in 100-year storm because of just all the dynamics that happened with the cold air in place, the length of the cold air in place, and the numerous amounts of snow packing in and not melting. It stayed with us for quite some time. And I started 4 years ago, and I've had a series of sponsors. Thank you to all my sponsors, but one has stuck with me every year. It's Security Gold and Silver Exchange. They were on State Street in Boise. No longer. They are now out in Nampa, just off the Garrity Boulevard exit. You get off the exit, take a left, go up the hill. You'll see, I think, McDonald's and then the Subway. Take a right at Subway and you'll see them. They have a great new studio. They have an art collection. They have jewelry, diamonds, all great prices, and of course the precious metals. You can find more information down in the discussion below. I'll put a link to their Facebook page. Before we get to the snow total forecast, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the show. And thank you to those of you who are checking us out for the very first time. You can also hear my weekend weather forecast on Indian Rider Radio. It's a national global podcast by my good friend Curtis Sawyer. If you like anything that has to do with motorsports, you are going to love this show. He has me put together a weekend weather forecast. His podcast airs on Friday. And you can check out the forecast there as well. Now let's talk about the weather pattern for this upcoming winter. We've all heard about El Nino and La Nina. The El Nino is when the water temperatures down in the Pacific Ocean are warmer than normal, and it has adverse effects on global weather patterns, as does the La Nina. When it's colder than normal, then the La Nina weather pattern develops for the most of the winter. And going into early spring, it looks like this one will continue into 2021. Here is a general pattern of the La Nina with the northern hemisphere. You can see North America right there. We usually see a ridge of high pressure out in the Pacific Ocean. That gets up towards the Gulf of Alaska and then transports cold air down into the Pacific Northwest and out into the plains. At the same time, some storms come underneath it, and it provides a very wet Pacific Northwest, a wetter than normal Pacific Northwest, and some of that does get in towards the state of Idaho. Down in the southern United States, it's typically drier and warmer than normal for the winter now. We're talking December 21st on forward. From the Great Lakes on up into the Northeast, it could be wetter than normal, and then that cold air drains down into the middle of the country. What determines the amount of snow that we get in La Ninas is whether or not that buckle in the jet stream takes place in the Pacific Northwest. If that polar jet stream sags a little bit to the south at the same time, when a storm comes in off the Pacific, that's when we get our best snowfalls. That happens frequently in a La Nina. It typically means that we have a normal to above normal snowpack for the mountains. The Treasure Valley will get some snow, and we'll talk about those snow totals coming up, but it may not be a whole lot because of the variation of that polar jet stream. There are times where that sags further enough south where we get some real good cold air coming in from the poles Then a lot of moisture gets thrown on top of it. That's where we'll see numerous amounts of snow. Sometimes, though, the jet stream just stays in a blocking pattern. The ridge of high pressure just kind of stays out in the Gulf of Alaska and just along the west coast, and that prevents a lot of the cold air to get in and the storminess to bring the moisture. So there have been some La Nina years where we get very little snowfall, and then there have been some, like the Snowmagedon, where we get tremendous amounts of snowfall. We will see over the next, 20, 30 years, heavy snowfall amounts, but I don't think we'll see the type of snow we saw where it was wet, heavy, and then locked in like we did during Snowmageddon. So I just want to get that out of the way. Don't think that we'll never see heavy snowfall in the Treasure Valley again. It's just that particular event was just so catastrophic because of the duration. And like I mentioned, I don't see that happening for quite some time. Long after I'm dead and buried, and I'm 51, I plan to live to be 110. All right, maybe that's an exaggeration. I don't know. I could die tomorrow. Let's talk about the weather pattern and the snow totals that I see happening. I think we're going to have a good snowpack this year. I do see the weather pattern unfolding with a very dry December until just around or after Christmas, and then things should get pretty active going right on in towards early January, and that will give us some snow. So for the month of December, let's concentrate on the mountains. I do see substantial snows coming our way, but towards mid and late December. That's when we'll see our heaviest snowfalls, and of course we have the snow already kick off in November. We're going to add to that. You can see there are some blues and then some darker blues, and then it goes into purple. That's the depth there on the right-hand side of that picture. We can see some 20 to 50-inch snow amounts getting on up into the higher elevations around Lowman, back up towards Yellow Pine, over to Council, and then, of course, around Brundage, Tamarack, and down towards Bogus. We are going to see some good skiing conditions, but I think the ski areas, of course, there are those that are making snow, and that's all fine and dandy, but for the real good fresh powder, I think that's going to come around Christmas break or Christmas week. I guess with this wacky COVID year, there really isn't a break since kids aren't in the school, but you get my point. Back up around over by Stanley and out by Sun Valley, you can see tremendous amount of snows coming in too. That's up in the purple colors, so we're talking 40 to maybe over 50 inches of snow in those higher peaks. Back towards Halfway, Enterprise, you can see a good shade of purple there as well. And then we get into the lighter shades of blue as we come down in elevation. Going down just towards Banks, you can see there's 20 to 30 inches in some of the higher elevations. Some areas around Garden Valley in November got 17 inches of snow. I know that because a resident, actually I bumped into a resident and we got talking weather and they let me know that information. So a tremendous amount of snow. A lot of that, of course, has melted going on in through the early stages of December. But as you can see, more snow will be on the way. But I do think it's going to be a dry start to December. Snow coming in on the tail end. And you can see all the way up by Grangeville, up around Riggin, some snow in the higher elevation. So a typical push of snow coming late December, going into early January. And you can see that there's some snow that was in the Treasure Valley and not in the Treasure Valley. Don't pay attention to that. I have your snow totals for that coming up. This is just focusing on the mountains right now. In January, this should be our snowiest month. We will see tremendous amounts of snow, and you can see the purples and the darker shades of blue and purple come a little bit down in lower elevations. We can also see snow across much of the Treasure Valley and up in the low valleys up there by Grangeville and Riggins. Heavy snows north of Mountain Home around Bennett Mountain, getting up towards Stanley, and then all the way back up, of course, up around McCall. Tamarack, Cascade, getting some good snows. Should be some great snowmobiling weather, some great cross-country skiing weather. I hope to get up there again this year. And, of course, the downhill skiing will be fantastic with some good fresh snow. Again, the heaviest looks to be in the first half of January. So a very typical, very standard weather pattern, I think, with this La Nina coming our way. And then February, which happens very often, is the snow machine kind of, shuts down. We don't get a lot of moisture in February. We get storms, mainly in the mountains, and the snowpack in the lower elevation wanes a little bit, but as you can see, still plenty of snow. Even down around Bogus, we got some good snow there in the 20 to 40, 50-inch range. So it looks like we'll start with a melting down in the southern latitudes, but up in the northern latitudes, the snowpack looks just fine. And then as we go in towards March, we can see that most of it melts away. Still some pretty good snows back up there in the higher peaks up around McCall, back towards Stanley. But in the last couple of years, we've had some great snows in March and April. I remember skiing in Powder 2 years ago. It was fantastic. In April, I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Waist deep powder up there at Bogus Basin. I don't see anything like that happening this year. I could be wrong. I think that this pattern will be a typical La Nina pattern where we'll get periods of snow intermittent in February, maybe in early March. But for the most part, the heaviest looks to come down December through around mid-January. We'll see how that unfolds. Hey, I mentioned up around McCall. Check out this McCall calendar. That's the 2021 calendar from McCall, Idaho. My good friend Marcia and Larry, they're up there in McCall, photographers. I will put the information down in the discussion if you want one of these calendars, how to get in contact with them to purchase this wonderful calendar with great scenery across all of McCall. All right, thanks for tuning on into the Weather Show with Vin Crosby. We'll continue with our winter weather outlook, but first I want to let you know how you can get in touch with me. It is theweathershow, the number 1, at gmail.com. That's my email. I do public speaking. I do weather consulting. I've done a lot of work with some construction companies and love getting out there and talking to groups about my career. And I do some emceeing. I do a little radio. I can do commercials. I've got a lot of skills. And so if you are interested in being a sponsor of the Weather Show, or having me just come out and talk to your group, I'd love to do that. Contact me at theweathershow1 at gmail.com, and then we'll get that taken care of. All right, without further ado, let's take a look and see what some of the snow totals will be like across the Treasure Valley this season. Again, I do all my own forecasting. I don't follow anybody else. I've been doing it for 30 years. My professor said, make your own forecast, then go back out and correct it. And I've had some great success. And if you look at my bio, that video, you can see my credentials and where I've come from and how I've done my forecast. So when I make a forecast and I'm wrong, I go back and try to correct it and see what I can do better. And that's the best way for life in general, right? Learn from your own mistakes. Don't worry about what others say or do. As you go on forward here, let's take a look at some of the forecasts. So let me start you off in Caldwell. Love going out to Caldwell. I drove out there today, actually, and I love seeing all those Christmas lights. Caldwell, December and January, picking up some snow. Not a whole lot, though. It looks like we're going to see 2 inches in December, 5 inches total in January, maybe a ½ inch in February, 1/10 of an inch in March, and nothing in April. I do see that we'll get periods of snow and rain coming on through. I like the overall total for snow. Caldwell for this season, 7.6 inches. Now you may say, hey, that's really low. Well, this year I think we're going to be a little starved for snow in the valley floors because of the way the jet stream is going to shape up. I do see the jet stream dropping some cold air in. I do see some inversion patterns developing more times than not, and that doesn't really make for a lot of snow back in the west end of the valley. We'll see if this forecast holds up, but right now I'm leaning towards less snow on the valley floors on the west end of the Treasure Valley. And as we come a little east into Nampa, you can see, well, there's the park, you can see the plain there, and you can see the snow covering the ground. But that may be few and far between, too. I do see a little bit more snow coming to Nampa as you come up in elevation, but just a little bit. December looks like we'll see around maybe 3 inches of snow total. That's right, 3 inches total for the month of December. January, I do see a couple of storms coming our way, maybe an inch or two here, maybe 1 to 3 inches here, but 6 inches total for the most part around Nampa in January. February, typically a dry pattern for much of the Treasure Valley. We do have some, anomalies to that where it's a little different, but I do see about an inch of snow falling in February. March, maybe a ½ inch of snow, dusting to a ½ inch, and then maybe a little 1/10 of an inch in April. I do see the chances for a little brief snow shower or a little brief snow in early April come on through this year with this La Nina. We'll see if that holds true. And now we'll move into Eagle, Idaho. The ground should be white at times in Eagle, and there you can see the snow starting to pile up right there on Eagle Road as you head out there towards Beacon Light. You look into the north. And the snow totals here should be a little bit more as you come up in elevation and get closer to those mountains. Now you'll see a little bit more as far as snow accumulations. I do like 3 inches in Eagle for December. A little bit more in January. We'll say 7 inches total. 1 inch in February, a ½ inch in March, and about 1/10 of an inch in April. Total, about 11.6 inches for Eagle for this upcoming winter season. Let's go and take a look at Meridian. And so 1 to 3, 2.5, maybe to 4 in December. 6 inches of snow in January. February, just below an inch, I'm thinking, maybe 3/4 of an inch of snow. March, maybe 3/10 of an inch, and nothing falling in April in Meridian this year. 9.55 inches. Look at that. That's below 10 inches of snow in Meridian. So I do see it a little lighter than normal. We usually get between 12, 15 inches of snow around these areas, but I just have this feeling that that blocking area high pressure will be just close enough to the Pacific coast that it really deflects a lot of the storms into our mountains and avoids the Treasure Valley. We'll see how this all pans out. And finally, Boise coming up in elevation, 2,800 feet or so. I do see more snow falling in Boise than all the other cities so far. I do see that the systems will kind of carve their way just north of the foothills, but we'll see some precipitation in downtown Boise for sure. I like 5 inches of snow to come on down in Boise for December. I think a lot of that's going to happen after the 20th of, or around the 20th of December. And then there should be some more storms that get in here around January, and that should give us up around 8 inches of snow. I like an inch or maybe 2 in February, just about a ½ inch in March, and maybe 3/10 of an inch in April. So all total, 14.9 inches for the season I'm looking for in Boise. So again, to recap, we are in a La Nina year. We're going to have this jet stream that I think is going to send this blocking ridge of high pressure that you can see out in the Pacific Ocean. That should move a little bit closer towards the west coast. And that will provide that buckle a little higher into Canada, deflecting storms down in towards the north. So I think that's going to take the majority of the cold air at times to the north or be in the mountains, and where it will not be in the Treasure Valley. So then when the moisture gets in here, we'll see mostly rain or mixture of light snow and sleet, and then of course the fog. And that's kind of the scenario I see unfolding this year in the Treasure Valley. And as I mentioned, totally could be wrong. We're looking way out. And so I've just looked at global weather patterns. That's kind of how I make this forecast. I've been studying it for about 30 years. There's certain patterns that I've seen over the years that leads me to believe that this will be a little bit below normal for some in the Treasure Valley as far as snow goes, and then right around normal for others. I think Boise, we average around 12 inches, 13 inches of snow a year. If I know there's many of you that have moved here from Seattle, from California. I think we're up 200% of people moving here. The typical winters we have, this typical snows we have in the Treasure Valley is pretty much what you've already experienced. We get a little bit of a dusting to an inch, maybe 3 inches. In the morning, it causes havoc on the roadways, and then it melts and it's gone by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That generally is how things unfold. Then, of course, west of Meridian, back towards the west, we see that deep inversion. The cold pool kind of settles there at the surface. It's lower elevation, so that cold air goes down in towards the surface, and that causes very thick fog, very heavy inversions, and that sometimes does expand towards the east. I do see a little bit more of the inversion happening this year than we've had in the past couple of years because of that blocking ridge of high pressure that'll be close to the Pacific coast. So, snow lovers, we will see snow. It probably won't be a ginormous amount of snow this year, but we'll have our bouts. The roads will get slick. You don't have to worry about that. There will be some panic on the roadways this winter in the mornings. I guarantee you that. But I don't see a foot or more of snow coming any month this year in our winter weather outlook, as this La Nina weather pattern really gives us a good snowpack in the mountains. Ski areas are going to love it. Great water supply for next year going into summer. So let me know your thoughts of the forecast. Let me know your snow total amounts. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. This season, I want you to track the snow that falls in your area, and then come to this video and write a comment down there. Give me your location. Let me know where the snow is falling, how much you've received. Maybe put a picture in there. That would be fantastic. I'd really appreciate that, so we can see how we're doing here at the Weather Show with Vin Crosby and how our forecasts are helping you out. Again, if you want any personalized forecasts, let me know. Email me. I'd love to come and speak to your groups. I love speaking to churches as well. I did write a book on weather in the Bible. I recreated all of Paul's shipwreck to Malta out there in the Mediterranean, just off what the Bible talks about in the book of Acts. So I love to come and speak to churches as well. And you can get information in my book at the top of the page. It's available on Amazon. And if you'd like to donate to the show, I love donations. It's a lot of work to do this. And so just contact me again via the email. And I've got Apple Pay and the Cash App on my phone. And even if you wanted to do the old-fashioned way and send a check, I'd appreciate that as well. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Weather Show. Of course, where there's any breaking weather or any big events, I love to get and produce a video. And I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate everybody out there. I mean, this has been a journey of love since the last 4 years. And of course, subscribe. And you can find my weather forecast on the podcast, Indian Rider Radio, every Friday for the weekend, everywhere in the country, that is for. I give that forecast with Curtis Sawyer. So a great little show there. He's having super success. I don't know, I think he's approaching 10,000 downloads in a short amount of time. So we're having some fun there. And I'd love to help you out too. If I could provide you a weather forecast on your podcast or maybe your webpage, I'd love to do that for you and let my 30 years of broadcast experience be used to help you. Thanks, everybody. God bless, and be safe this winter.